and greetings from Indic Academy. Such a pleasure to have with us a journalist as well as a writer, Nandini Sengupta ji. Thank you so much, Nandini ji, for joining.
Namaskar and thank you so much. This is an absolute honor and privilege.
Thank you. Nandini ji is a journalist and is an author known for writing historical fiction and narrative non-fiction, primarily about Indian history. Her books include a historical fiction trilogy on the Gupta Empire, a biography of Rani Durgawati, and a children's book about historical animals. And she will be leading the Nilgiris Writing Retreat for Indic Academy at Kunur between November 28th to 30th. Thank you so much, Nandini ji.
Thank you so much for
We,
having me.
yeah. We were just talking before this about journalism and writing, and you mentioned about how you apply the skills that you have got through journalism to your writing as well. For instance, Nandini ji, while working for Mint, they used to tell us that, even if you go for a corporate annual their financial review, you still
Hmm.
had to get a third independent view on their annual reporting. So
Yeah.
how do you use your business journalism experience in creative writing?
Thank you so much. That is a beautiful question because I've spent more than 30 years being a journalist, most of it for the Economic Times and now the Times of India. And everything I have learned about writing, I have learned on the job. And what it has taught me, there are three or four very important things. The first is an ability to talk to people. This, you have also been a journalist, you will be able to vouch for this, that we journalists are trained to just walk up to people and ask them stuff without feeling self-conscious about it, without feeling, oh my God, what if they say, I don't want to talk to you, who are you, or whatever. And that basic shamelessness, if I may say so, is very important when you're doing field studies, when you're going and talking to people. And when I was doing the research for my book on Rani Durgawati, this is precisely what I did. I put on my journalist's hat. I sat at, the Narmada, Prachin Narmada Mandir, at Pachmatha Mandir, and I just spoke to absolutely random people who were walking in, who wanted to give some offering to the deity. And many of them were women. I spoke to many pujaris, and every single time they came back with incredible stories. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, history is not just, of course, primary sources are the most important. Then there are literary sources, then there are numismatic sources, what you get from coins, there are inscriptions, and so on. But there is another part of history which is locked in people's memories. And you can get that aspect of history, why people remember, how they remember, and what they don't want to remember. That is also very important. And you can unlock that when you talk to people. So, the first thing that journalism has helped me with is to be able to talk to all sorts of people, from archaeologists to a young, just married woman who has come with some puja offerings to the temple. And that's one. The second is the ability to look at every story as something that can and should be looked at from all angles. This is again something that journalism has taught us, that you do not go by what one source says. You always talk to more people. So even if it is a version given by a very famous Indologist or a very famous historian, you should and you must, in fact, look at the primary sources and talk to people. Give a 360-degree reportage. It's just that, the stories that I'm writing about in my books happened hundreds, sometimes thousands of years ago, but they are still a story. And they have to be told with honesty. They have to be told with a pair of eyes and a voice that is devoid of bias. And sometimes that bias has been built in over decades by people who are very well known, very well established in the field of history and historiography. So to write against that bias is an act of, um, I would say, rebellion. And sometimes people don't take very kindly to that as well. But as a journalist, this is what my training has taught me to do. The last, of course, you've just spoken about how we journalists work with deadlines. But in my case, what it has taught me is that you tend to fix deadlines more realistically. A lot of people I speak to who are just starting out in writing find that they fix very ambitious deadlines, and then it becomes difficult to stick to those deadlines because you didn't realize that there would be spillovers, there would be delays, and so on. As a journalist, I am reasonably comfortable fixing deadlines, which I know more or less I should be able to, meet. Mostly, 90% of the time, there are sometimes there are unforeseen things that happen, but mostly a journalist will be able to fix a deadline that is achievable, and that is something that publishers, for instance, greatly value.
And then if you take music, Indian classical music, they say that there is no course for composing in Indian music. There are courses for the singing, and you have a Guru Shishya Parampara. You can be trained to sing, but you can't be trained to compose, unlike in the West. So, what
Mhm.
are your thoughts on like to be able to write and factual books and to do journalism? You can be trained to do it. But do you believe that creative writing requires an extra skill or an innate ability which can't? How much of it can be taught? Let me put it.
I'm going to be an outlier in this. I think I think creative writing can be taught, and it can be taught very well. And there is a very well-known person called Stephen Pinker. He has written about this. It's a style guide for intelligent writing. So there are things that you can do which allows you to connect better with your audience. At the end of the day, whether you are a journalist or you are a writer, or you may be just maybe a corporate person, you are an executive, right? Or you may be, say, a business person, you have your own business. You can turn around and say, why do I need to learn how to write? There is a very simple reason for that. The more you learn how to write or articulate your thoughts better, the more clarity you will have in your head to communicate yourself better. So writing is the ultimate in communication, and absolutely it can be taught. It is a There are many hacks, there are many tricks, and of course the most basic is you cannot learn how to write well if you do not read. So those who don't read can't write. It's just there's no other way of doing it. But beyond that also, there are many hacks that you can learn and that can make your writing smarter, that can make your writing connect with your readers, with your audience better. No matter what you're writing, you may be writing an annual report. You may be writing some kind of data compendium, or you may be writing a book of fiction. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you are able to communicate your ideas well, coherently, intelligently to the person you are talking to, then you're a writer. And that is a skill that can be taught.
Uh, Nandini ji, I was reading a book by one of Subhash Chandra Bose's uh, journalism associates who became his minister of propaganda. And, he was so overwhelmed by the task that Netaji gave him. And he said, I'm not so sure I can be a journalist. And, because there are many things that I don't know. So Netaji told him that, there are just two things. One is use common sense. You don't have to know everything, and avoid very simple, silly mistakes. And you can achieve more than you can possibly imagine. So, is not knowing, suppose you were to get into historical writing, and there is no way that you can possibly know everything that there is to be known, for instance, about the Gupta Empire. So, would this advice by Netaji hold good for the research and the writing that you have, kind of writing that you do?
Um, See, there is a very basic rule that most people who do creative writing classes, and I have been doing them for the SAIC undergraduate course for a while now, um, say is that you write best when you know what you're talking about, right? So if you are a 19-year-old child living in Pondicherry in India, then don't try and pretend to be a 57-year-old white male living in Cincinnati. Uh, you can, if you research the life of 57-year-old white males in Cincinnati so well that you kind of become that person. So my point is that it is absolutely imperative that you know what you are talking about. Because if you don't, then your readers will catch you out. And your writing is going to is not going to sound true, you know? So the best thing to do is to write, like people keep saying that, there's a very beautiful comment by uh, uh, the great American writers who have said that you can sit at your um, typewriter and bleed. So this is a quote by Hemingway. He's one of my favorite writers, and he says that you just sit at your typewriter and bleed. What he means is that you're writing from your heart. You're writing what you feel very strongly about. And if what you feel very strongly about is a certain kind of algae at the bottom of the ocean, and you're writing passionately about it, you will write a brilliant book on it, or you'll write a brilliant article on it, because you have done your job of researching it. You're passionate about it. You know what you're talking about. So my point is, you can't fool the reader. You've got to do your homework. Either you know what you're writing about. So if you are a 19-year-old girl in Pondicherry, then and you're writing about 19-year-old people in Pondicherry, then that's fine. You're writing about what you know. Or if, like in the case of the Gupta Empire trilogy, you're writing about something that happened 15, 1600 years ago, you've got to do your research well so that you can bring that world to life in a manner that people will think that it is an immersive experience and believe your voice. That is very important. Believability of your voice.
Nandini, who do you think will benefit from a 3-day creative writing workshop? From the top of my head, I can think of not just writers, but also filmmakers, script writers, even those who, nowadays everyone's writing a blog, even a person who is interested in Indian history. Or
Yes.
what is, like, in your experience, who are the people who are interested in creative writing?
See, of course, the demographic you just described, definitely, those are the people who will benefit. But also, there may be a lot of people who are just readers. They like to read history, or they not just history. I mean, it's not necessary that the entire workshop will talk about historical writing only. Um, but just, talking about writing is a very cathartic experience because, as you know, writers are very lonely people. The
Hmm.
the the journey of a writer is a very lonely journey, and you only feel less lonely when you connect with other people who are mad enough like you to live in their heads, uh, and to live in their stories that are being spun out in their heads. So anybody who is interested in storytelling, whether reading stories, whether writing stories, or just communicating. You may not even be interested in telling your story, but you are somebody who likes to communicate, or you are maybe you're a PR professional, maybe you're a media professional, maybe you are just an executive, a corporate executive, but you want to express yourself better, or you want to communicate with your audience better. All of these demographics will enjoy this course, for the simple reason that writing is 99% of writing is communicating what is there in your head as an idea coherently and in an interesting and engaging manner with people you do not know, and 9 times out of 10 will not meet. So so this ability to touch people through your words is something that can be useful for a lot of people, but it can be enjoyable for even more number of people.
So in a world of AI, where we have tools which we didn't have maybe even 5 years ago, what is how much emphasis do you put on editing and rewriting, Nandini ji? And do you think would your workshop cover some aspects of that? Lot of people think it's just the first cut, writing and is over. But only, a writer who's published by three very famous publishing houses would know how many times you revisit your book and rewrite, and how
Yeah,
much it changes in the rewriting and revisit.
yeah. So we are not going to do too much editing work in the workshop, because for the simple reason we are looking at exercises focused on telling the story. The editing phase comes later. Once you have already told your story, that's when the editing phase kicks in. And of course, as you rightly said, every manuscript goes through multiple drafts. Even when you're writing it over and over and over and over again, till you're half satisfied with what you have done. And then, of course, your editor will make suggestions and so on. So it is a long process. But you are very right in pointing out the role of AI. A lot of people think that with AI, the writer becomes irrelevant. And let me point out to you that that is not so. If it was so, then AI would have replaced um, writers and screenplay writers and script writers already. It has not. And there is a reason why it has not. You see, AI is very good as an enabler, but AI cannot replace original thought. So if you take the story of Shakuntala, let's take this is a very favorite example of mine. Shakuntala's story is from the Mahabharata, right? You can give it to AI, and AI will tell you the story of Shakuntala in 10 lines, right? But AI will not be Kalidas. And AI will not produce something that will survive in people's imaginations, in people's minds and hearts for more than 16 millennia. So, what you do with the ideas in your head, that is something that only human beings can do. AI cannot do it. What AI can do is help fix your grammar here and there, help fix some structural issues here and there. But even there, in my class, for instance, it's very easy for me to find out which students have used AI. You know why? Because they all sound the same. So, every writer, every human being has a different voice. And that voice, the difference that that voice brings to the table is what makes it special, right? No two human beings look the same. You and I and every other person on the planet, all of us have certain specific characteristics that mark us out, right? So similarly, every one of us has a different voice. What AI does is gives a standardized, basic, acceptable, grammatically correct version of the story. But that's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. So, no, AI does not and cannot replace creativity. It can't. What it can do is it can be an enabler, and it can be a very good enabler. But that's about it. It's a good servant. It can never be the master.
As a last question, since we were talking about Shakuntala and Kalidas, the our itihasas and Puranas are all historical narratives, Nandini ji. And we always saw history as being cyclical rather than linear, like how the West sees history. So when modern writers write about Indian history or revisit the past, what style or what mode do you do? Is it up to the person who is living in today's world? Or do you think that, in some way the Indian method should be recaptured for telling our stories?
Um, Here again, I believe that a story tells itself. Uh, with the book on Rani Durgawati, for instance, the way I wrote it was, and I keep saying I'm not a historian, I'm a hack. I wrote the story as a journalist would. Will I write other historical biographies uh, in the same with the same voice? Maybe not. But what happens is that your subject will choose the style that is best suited um, to the story. And again, I give a very there's a very good example of this. For example, say let's take a writer like Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. He is a very famous Bengali literature, and he has written multiple, and he writes, he is a master of this historical fiction genre. So, if you take two of his very famous novels, one is Kopal Kundala, and the second one is Raj Shingo, you will see what I mean. Raj Shingo is very much a romantic story about a very romantic, Rajput king, and it's a typical sort of Ivanhoe type romance, historical romance. Kopal Kundala is far more layered. It is complicated. The main character is uh, very complicated. I mean, she is both naive as well as she's both innocent as well as knowledgeable, both naive as well as a person of the world. And this peculiar mix is beautifully fitted to the structure that the story takes. So what I'm trying to say is that when you are telling a story, the story will demand the right structure that is best suited to it. Um, and that is different for different books. I don't think there is a one size fits all.
Thank you so much, Nandini ji. Looking forward to your workshop, and I hope all our listeners who listen to this podcast would register and come. It's the setting is beautiful, the most beautiful natural landscape, and it would be lovely to think about words and thoughts and poetry and narratives and history with you. Thank you
I'm
so.
really looking forward. Also, because there is no better way for writers than to spend some time with other people who love words as much as they do. And this cross pollination always helps the creative process. So who knows what beautiful things will come out of this. Do
Absolutely.
join in and do be there. It will be my pleasure and honor to interact and to learn something from you and from something from each other.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Namaste and all the best.
Namaste.